Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zoe Barsness. I'm the chair of the Faculty Assembly here at the University of Washington, and it's my honor to introduce Provost Baldasty today. Recently, someone came and interviewed me for the UW Today, and one of the little quotes that came out of that was, I apparently said, if you want something done, do it yourself, but if you want something done right, do it together. And I know that that's a philosophy which Jerry Baldasty and I share. Just as we collaborate to fulfill the university's mission of teaching, research, and service, we work together to govern. Shared governance means that the faculty and administration partner in stewarding the institution. While we each have domains of primary responsibility, our success in generating new knowledge, educating students, and engaging with the community partners is determined by the degree to which we, the faculty and administration, effectively collaborate together. We succeed as an organization only to the degree that we support each other's efforts and creatively and constructively invest in the countless collaborations, small and large, that characterize the day-to-day operations of this amazing institution. The work isn't always glamorous. Some addresses things like deferred maintenance, HR payroll, and finance transformation, challenges associated with our physical plant, and the bête noire of faculty classroom scheduling. Okay. Other times it's daunting. This year, faculty leadership has been working in partnership with the provost and the deans and chancellors to improve the faculty salary policy, enhance tri-campus relations, tackle complex issues of diversity and inclusion, such as the composition of the faculty, faculty career progression, the role and employment conditions for lecturers. Most recently, we've sought to encourage and support more robust engagement between faculty and administration at the school, campus, and college level to evaluate longer-term strategies and the implications of these for human capital and program investment. In short, it's an intimidating portfolio of work, best and most effectively tackled together. This year, it's been my pleasure and privilege to work with Jerry. As his partner in shared governance, I can attest, as so many of you can, students, faculty, staff, alumni, community partners, that he is sincerely and deeply committed to collaboration and broad engagement. He lives and breathes shared governance, not just with faculty, but with students too. He also has many personal qualities that make him a great collaborator, and which I deeply appreciate. He's an excellent listener. He's authentic, caring, and committed to his colleagues. And he's a strategic thinker, but most important, he's a doer. He's insightful not just about what needs to get done, but is willing to prioritize, which is a very challenging task to do. People don't like hearing no. And then is thoughtful and focused about how to realize those goals and objectives. He has a good sense of humor, which when you spend a lot of time in meetings together is not something to be discounted. Most important, he's about us. What motivates and energizes him is a strong desire to leave our institution a better place for students, faculty, and staff. That institutional focus shouldn't be surprising, because close to his heart is the student experience and the conviction that the University of Washington is a great place to be a student. Jerry is a big reason why that is true. His Husky experience began the moment he arrived on campus as a 17-year-old freshman from Spokane, the child of working-class parents, the grandchild of Irish immigrants, and a first-generation college student. He often notes that his experience at UW opened avenues of exploration for him that he never considered. Such, he went on to a career in academics. He cares about student experience because it is so important to his own Husky experience. Likewise, he cares about the faculty experience because it was critical to his own formation and success as a scholar. Jerry's Husky experience has lasted his entire life and vividly illustrates our long-standing commitment as an institution to access and excellence. His collaborative leadership demonstrates his deep commitment to strengthening the institution to ensure it will continue to provide exciting opportunities for students, faculty, and staff to discover their own passions, pursue their own dreams, and positively impact their own communities, just as it did for him. Please join me in welcoming the provost, who works so tirelessly for us and this institution.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe, for that generous introduction. I really consider myself fortunate to get to work with you too. Your perspective on faculty issues informs all of us. You're a good advocate and help us think about a lot of things that we might not think of on our own, so thank you. And I'm going to talk a bit more about some of our escapades as I go on. I want to thank all of you for being here today. As we gather in this place, we note that our entire Seattle campus is situated on native land. So please join me in acknowledging the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. In moments like these, I find myself reflecting a bit on my own history at the University of Washington. When I was an undergraduate here, I was particularly fortunate to have some remarkable mentors. One in particular stands out. Meeting Bill Ames changed my life. He introduced me to the excitement of research, urged me to go to graduate school, was my dissertation advisor, and later my faculty colleague. Bill died nearly 30 years ago, but his wife, Jan, remains for Randy and me one of our closest friends. And so across nearly 50 years, she's been a steady friend and confidant. So it's very meaningful for me today that she's here. So thank you, Jan. I won't point her out, but if you see a relatively small person who's pretending to be invisible, who does not want to be the center of attention, that's Jan. We know today that mentorship is such a major key in student success and engagement and success. So to those of you, faculty, staff, and students who are mentors to others, thank you. And if you aren't a mentor yet, please recognize its value. You can do for others what Bill Ames did for me. About a year ago, in the same place, I spoke about the university, our goals, and our challenges. And I want to reprise just a little bit of that for a minute. Our goals, identified as threefold: to produce research and scholarship that enrich and leads our world, solving the big problems of our time. Second, we educate the next generation of leaders and innovators. And third, we recognize that service to our community really matters. Those are our goals. We have challenges too, and I talked about those a year ago, and I want to just refresh your memory on those. There's a changing environment here for our faculty. It's just harder to be a faculty member now than it was 20 or 30 years ago. Research funding is limited. Research awards are highly competitive. And there are increased demands for all faculty for service and accountability. Second, we are in an era in which public education does not garner the financial support that it did 10, 20, 30, or 40 years ago. We were asked to do more, but with less. Third, we face competition for the most promising faculty, staff, and students. And fourth, our society has changed so much. When I joined the faculty in 1978, my department had 16 white men and one white woman, and our students were overwhelmingly white. The university has changed since then, but not as fast as society has changed, and therein is our major challenge: to provide a university environment that supports the success of all who work and study here. So these goals on research, teaching, and service we affirm, and those challenges, well, they reaffirm themselves. Actually, some of them seem bigger and sharper than they were just a year ago when I first talked about them, some more difficult than we ever could have imagined in April of 2016. Today, I want to talk to you about all of these things, what we have done together in the past year, and talk a little bit about where I think we're headed. The past 4 months or so have been among the most challenging that many of us have faced at this university. It's been a time of deep anxiety for many, regardless of political views. The last time I saw the university in such a state was in the spring of 1970, with the protests over the expansion of the Vietnam War, the deep polarization on campus and in our nation at that time. I remember I was a student, and I remember so vividly the uncertainty, the discomfort, and sometimes the fear. And so for many on our campus, that uncertainty and that fear and that discomfort continues into this spring, on the right and on the left and everywhere in between. We must continue to address the fears and the polarization of our times, And I'll talk a little bit later about our continuing work around some of these issues. But even in these uncertain times, I do want to underscore my optimism about the University of Washington. Our work is often harder than it used to be, but that's all the more reason to remind ourselves of the importance of higher education. This is a great university, and we have a huge amount to be proud of. The incoming class in autumn 2016 was the most diverse in our nation's history, in the university's history, not our nation's, in our university's history. We have remained true to our commitment to be the university of and for Washington. We educate Washingtonians. 75% of our undergraduate class comes from this state. Just by way of contrast, there's a university about 300 miles down I-5 that's a flagship university in its state, and only 52% of the undergraduates there are from that state. There continue to be remarkable reminders that this is a university that really matters. And I want to just spend a few minutes talking to you about your accomplishments and how your work is seen across the globe. A large number of our programs are in the top 10 in the country or in the world. Nursing, education, public health, dentistry, the Evans School. Pharmacy recently ranked number 2 in the global rankings for clinical pharmacy and medicine. Number 2 just behind Harvard, ahead of Stanford, Cambridge, Hopkins, and UCSF. Foster, number 7 in the world in business research, according to the Financial Times. But that's among all types of universities, and like so many of ours, the numbers go up when you just look at public universities, and Foster there is number 1. UW-Bothell has been nationally ranked by Payscale.com as number 42 in the nation for return on investment for students. And I mention that because it comes in ahead of Yale and some other schools like Yale. Tacoma, UW-Tacoma has been recognized as one of the top 50 most diverse college campuses by Best Colleges Reviews. School of Medicine consistently is rated as having the best primary care medical education in the country. There's lots of rankings, but one recently caught my eye from the Center for World University Rankings, because their rankings measure quality of education and training of students, as well as prestige of faculty members and quality of their research. UW was ranked number 9 globally, and some of its programs were ranked in the top 10. Social work as the best such program in the world. Oceanography, audiology, and speech-language pathology programs were each second. So much to celebrate. Beyond the rankings, there are other good things, and I want to mention just one. Students have asked us to allow them to designate their preferred name for class rosters and in other areas. And we've delivered, and this preferred names process is now employed in student-facing services such as MyUW and in teaching and learning platforms such as Canvas. You know, this may seem pretty small when you put that up against the wonderful ratings that we can be so proud of, the rankings. So it can seem kind of small, but to the nearly 1,000 students who have taken advantage of this process, it means all the world. I especially want to thank our registrar, Helen Garrett, for her work on this. So much to be proud of, but lots left to do. The provost is the university's chief budget officer and its chief academic officer, and I want to speak from that dual perspective today. There's value in having a senior university leader who has oversight over both budget and academics. Academic decisions impact budgets, and budgets are about money, of course, but they should always be, and as Sandy Archibald exhorts me and anybody else who will listen to her, they have to be about strategy, about our academic goals and how we reach them. The provost's job requires a lot of attention to day-to-day issues, what Anna Mari used to call the socks and underwear stuff. Nothing very glitzy, not the stuff of legacy. Last June, when my appointment as provost was announced, we had a passing of the torch, or more correctly, a passing of the socks and underwear. Just one exhibit. So, about budgets. Watch out, this is the money part of the talk. The general terrain of higher education today is one of a general lack of money. This university and so many other public universities have long been under-resourced. A year ago, I mentioned our need to address long-ignored infrastructure systems such as our HR payroll system and our financial systems. I'm happy to say there's some good news there. Our 35-year-old payroll system will be replaced soon by Workday. And the good news is that we're on schedule for late June. Invariably, there'll be some bugs as it debuts, but a huge amount of work, user testing, and so on, has been in place to anticipate and to prevent possible problems. And a strong team will be on site in late June into July to fix the bugs as they appear. As a result of this, more than 45,000 UW employees will have streamlined access to earning statements and leave balances, and will have the capacity to think about HR not just in terms of record keeping, but in larger strategic ways. We are moving ahead too on finance modernization, the second major systems revision. Our relatively new Executive Vice President for Finance Administration, Jeff Scott, who's right here, hi Jeff, and his team are focused both on controlling costs and moving this work ahead rapidly. They've made an incredibly great start in a short period of time. So we have some success, and these are significant. Still, there are challenges, and let me talk a little bit about them. I expect that revenue will be flat in the next few years or even longer, even though we're trying all we can to keep it from being flat. And finding vast new revenue streams seems incredibly unlikely. So the focus has to be on efficient use of what we have now. We have to establish clear priorities, and we have to think about redeploying the money that we have. If we have new programs or new initiatives that we want to pursue, we need to redeploy. Let me talk about both of those, first priorities, and secondly, redeployment. For Anamari and me, compensation for faculty and staff has been a top priority. It's a challenge, to be sure, in an era of constrained resources, but it's a priority. Zoe made a reference to this. This year, we've launched a very promising venture, a joint project of the Faculty Senate, the Board of Deans and Chancellors, the elected faculty councils in the schools and colleges, and my office. There's two core principles in this initiative. One, the first is money's limited. There's just so much of it. And the second is when you spend money on one thing, you don't have it for something else. Seems a little simplistic, but it's a good place to start. Our deans and chancellors are working with their elected faculty councils on a broad overview of first our goals, or their goals, in hiring, teaching, and other areas, and secondly, the need for funds to meet those goals. So this is about compensation for our faculty and staff, but it's also about funds for programmatic support and for innovation. Let me give you a couple of examples about how I think about this. The more faculty you hire, the less money you have for faculty who are here. That's not original to me. Paul Hopkins and Jack Lee, Paul Hopkins from chemistry and Jack Lee from mathematics have been talking about this for years. The number of faculty in a program can tell you two things. First, it tells you something about the breadth and the depth of that program, perhaps the quality of it, the range of kinds of research and teaching that are available there. And of course, that's what we focus on a great deal. But it can also tell you something about the cost. The number of faculty tell you about the cost. Salaries, benefit, startup costs. Some of our schools and colleges were spending $1 million or more for startup packages for new faculty. It's really crucial to see the link between what we do and finances and costs. The number of credits in a major relates to its cost. A 75 credit major is more expensive than a 55 credit major, both for the university and for the student. Classes with 20 students produce far less tuition revenue than courses with 100 or 200 or more. Now, should we want to hire more faculty? Yes, of course. Should we have 75 credit majors when the discipline really merits it or demands it? Yes, of course. And should we have classes of 20 even if they produce less tuition revenue than bigger classes? Yes, emphatically. But the thing is, we have to recognize that there are financial implications to all these things. So we need to make our choices strategically. First and foremost, with an eye to our mission and to excellence. That's what really needs to lead it. But then secondly, in the context of our finances. I know that the deans and chancellors are working with their elected faculty councils on this, and the reports will start coming into me in May. It's an ongoing project. It's a big one. But you know, if we're successful at doing this, I think it will really change much of the conversation here between administration and faculty. Zoe, you've been just a remarkable leader in this. And I think actually we met yesterday with, Zoe and Thaisa invited me to come and talk to the elected faculty chairs yesterday, and we were sort of blown away by the work that they're doing and their excitement about how they're looking at these issues and working with their deans. I want to stress again, work has to be driven by our academic values to protect and support our mission, and then only after that in thinking about constrained resources. This isn't about becoming a business at all. Rather, it's about keeping our academic vision sustainable. Redeployment. When it comes to starting new programs or funding new systems, we don't have new revenue, but we are not waiting around for someone to come and save us. So we have to redeploy funds from other areas. We did this a year ago, redeploying about $5 million so that last autumn we could open the Portage Bay Daycare Center, the first new UW daycare center in a decade. In the budget work that I do with the deans and the chancellors this year and the vice presidents, I asked everybody to talk about redeployment. What could they do to redirect existing funds to better fulfill our mission? Could they stop doing some things so that they could afford to do the new things that have to be done? And of course, the provost office needs to be part of this as well. I'm taking a 2% cut of my own core budget this year, and these recurring funds will be redeployed to enhance services for our international students and to support the UW Veterans Center. I'm also reviewing all reserves within the Provost organization, and we'll be repurposing at least $2 million to support our Office for the Safety of Minors and to launch work in shared services that brings efficiency, standardization, and security. And I'm not alone in this work. Our Executive Vice President for Finance Administration, Jeff Scott, is taking budget cuts in his units as well, and he'll be redeploying those funds to support finance modernization. This is the new normal. We have to continue to do it this way. We have no option. It's not just about Jeff and me. Others are doing the same too. Libraries, the Evans School, the Foster School, Health Sciences Administration, Student Life, and many others have taken a very proactive approach in this area. So my thanks to the leaders in those units, to Betsy Wilson, Sandy Archibald, Jim Balvo, David Anderson, Denzel Sweet, and many others who are doing similar kinds of work. Okay, the money part's over now. Okay. Academics. Research and teaching are central to our academic mission. So any discussion of academics needs to address the concerns of our faculty, the learning environment of our students, and the work of our staff. Much of the core work of what we do in education and in academics takes place in the classroom, and we focus a lot of energy in the last year on that learning environment. I want to identify 5 areas where we have done some specific work. First, we have continued investment in improvement in instruction, classroom renovations, both technological and physical. New learning spaces, the renovation of Danny Hall, coming online of Nano ES, and an active learning classroom in Mary Gates Hall, and a second one soon to follow. We've put energy into what we are calling evidence-based teaching project. It provides valuable insight based on research on how to engage all students and how to improve student learning. And our 5th cohort of technology teaching fellows, which helps faculty to use technology in their courses, will launch this summer under the auspices of the Center for Teaching and Learning. So we're doing a lot in terms of investment. Second, we have worked to improve the use of our classrooms via scheduling and access. I want to talk about this for a minute because it's really important. Our current system of scheduling classes is broken. In autumn of 2016, for example, 30% of classroom requests, that's 1,200 classes, the 30% is 1,200 classes, could not be honored at the time departments wanted to schedule those classes, which means that those classes got shuffled into other time periods, often at the last moment, net disconcerted, to say the least, our faculty and students. In surveys and focus groups over the years, faculty and students have told us that predictability in scheduling was the most important thing. Time of day is nice, but predictability is really critical. And finding out a week before the quarter begins what time your class will be held and where it might be held is difficult. Our classroom scheduling initiative will roll out a year from now in the spring of 18. We're going to spread classes across the day, rather than trying to shoehorn all of them into the period between 9:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m., which has been everyone's preference. We're going to adopt a more uniform class time period to facilitate effective use of classrooms. There's pilot work going on with departments to help them plan for this. There's developing tools to help people figure out how to do this. And information about all of these policies are available now on the Office of the University Registrar website. So if you go to the University Registrar, you'll find them there. This is a big change. It's going to be a big change. It's going to take some getting used to it. I want to stress that. It's going to take some getting used to. But we really don't have a choice unless we want to spend $75 to $100 million of money that we do not really have to build a new classroom, and I don't know where we put it, a new building for classrooms. I deeply appreciate the advice so many of you have given. We've tried to design a system that addresses the concerns you've raised and the teaching needs you detail. A lot of people have worked on this project. These are the kinds of projects that take some number of years. I'm particularly grateful to Phil Reed, Vice Provost for Academic and Student Affairs and Professor of Chemistry, for his creative, and I want to stress, patient leadership in this arena. Third, we've also worked with our faculty to create classroom environments in which all of our students can participate. I mean, that's just good teaching. But it's been a significant concern over the past few months. Faculty have been asking, how can we encourage students to express their views while maintaining a sense of respect and understanding? What are the best strategies for addressing social issues, especially those pertaining to race, gender, and sexuality, when students believe these to be partisan issues? I sent a message to campus in early March about this that highlighted the creative work and best practices of many across the university. My message was informed by the very thoughtful work being done by the Center for Teaching and Learning and by faculty in several departments, sociology, political science, and communication. And George Lovell from political science was particularly helpful in pulling together materials on how to set expectations for classes that would provide a foundation for those healthy kinds of conversations, those healthy and respectful kinds of conversations. Fourth, we have continued to support student retention and success. Over 2 years ago, we started the Student Retention Task Force to build on already strong programs in the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity and Undergraduate Academic Affairs. Our 6-year graduation rate for undergrads is 86%, by far the best in public education in this state, but it could be better. It needs to be better. The retention work has led to our joining the American Talent Initiative Task Force, a consortium of top-tier universities dedicated to serving lower-income students. Our focus is on the retention and success of underrepresented minorities, students, and first in family to attend college. This was a natural extension of the work we're already doing around retention. There are many staff here who have been involved in this work at the university. A special thanks to Felipe Martinez in Student Life and Christian Wiles in OMAD, and to the senior leaders who actually have championed this work, especially Denzel Sweet, Ricky Hall, and Ed Taylor. Fifth, it's not just about student retention and success, but also about faculty and staff retention and success. When we think about the success of those people, for faculty in their research, teaching, and clinical work, for our students in their learning inside and outside the classroom, and for our staff in providing year after year the support that makes everything else possible, to have all that be successful, we have to have an environment in which each of us can thrive. That means an inclusive campus climate, attracting, retaining, and graduating a diverse and excellent student body, attracting and retaining diverse faculty and staff, and assessing the diversity needs of all our 3 campuses. The Diversity Blueprint 2017 to 21, which launched this year, is one of the primary tools to help us accomplish this. It's a framework that our schools and colleges and administrative units are using to better integrate into their planning and to hold themselves accountable. Going forward, our Associate Vice Provost for Faculty Advancement, Chad Allen, is hosting workshops to help units, help them use the framework in planning and developing metrics to gauge their own progress. And early adopters, such as the School of Nursing and the iSchool, are sharing their planning work with many others. Well, those are things that have been going on. Most of them are going to be continuing. They're not just something we got started, we are done with quickly. Classroom scheduling, the Race and Equity Initiative, student retention and success, our partnership between the elected faculty councils and the Board of Deans and Chancellors thinking about finance. All of those will continue. I want to spend a little bit of time towards the end here talking about a few things that I haven't mentioned that I think are extraordinarily important for the year ahead. The first is the Transforming Administration Project. This is our ongoing work in effectiveness and efficiency. We just completed a survey of faculty and by faculty, staff, and students looking at our core administrative work. And the questions were, what are we doing well? How can we do better? We have just preliminary results from the surveys, but the highest score goes to our staff for being highly responsive and professional. And among units in the central part of the university, the libraries in particular received high praise. The preliminary results also point to work that we need to do. We have vast amounts of information that we produce every year, and people tell us they don't know how to find it. It's not easy to access. We'll need to work on this and other things that we find as we go through the responses more carefully. I'm asking each central administrative unit to create a plan to address the survey, how to sustain what's good, how to keep that going. I mean, some of it might be just surprising. Wow, we're doing this well, but how do you keep doing it? And then how to move ahead in areas where improvement is needed. A second goal for this coming year is around accessibility. In autumn of 2016, I launched a task force to look at accessibility services for faculty, students, and staff. And that task force identified some things that we need to work on. We need to decrease time to get accessible content to students. We need to launch a lecture capture service for proactive captioning. And we have to do more to coordinate between academic units and disability service units. And most of all, we need to develop a broader approach to what is called universal design, designing materials at the outset that can be used by the greatest number of individuals without accommodation. This is the most proactive approach we could take toward addressing issues of accessibility, and it's one of our goals to get going on soon. I just asked a group of people to serve on the International Student Services Executive Steering Committee. Our goal is how can we better engage our international students on campus? What's working well? What could work better? The first step in this process was we indefinitely suspended the $45 a quarter international student fee. It was seen by many students as a discriminatory measure. I've asked a group of senior level leaders to provide university-wide direction and coordination to our work with international students. Thanks to the co-chairs, Denzel Sweet, Student Life, and Jeff Riedinger, our Vice Provost for Global Affairs, for taking on this important work. We also need to pay attention to the educational needs of our students. Part of our educational mission is to help our students acquire the critical thinking skills that will provide the foundation of their post-UW life and careers. This has long been an important part of our work, but it's even more so today in the era of fake news, of deliberately distorted claims about our world, our society, and the problems that we face. I speak about this not as a political issue, but as an epistemological one. How do we know what we know? What's true? What's false? There are several UW faculty who have been doing important work in this area in their publications and in their teaching. Kate Starbird from HCDE, Jevin West and Emma Spiro from the iSchool, Carl Bergstrom from biology, and Katie Pierce from communication, and others. I've had a chance to meet with these faculty and about 15 others over the last couple of months to talk about what we should or could do to address the epistemological issues on the right, on the left, it doesn't matter. And I'll be reconvening the group in the summer and the fall to work on developing a broader university-wide approach. I don't know what we should be doing, but I do know that this is something that rises to the level of needing to be addressed at a university. For all of you, as faculty and staff, there's a role in this for you too, because you are the experts in your field, and you need to be able to profess well what is the right thing, what is the truth about the world around us. And the last big initiative for the coming year is what optimistically, with maybe hubris, calling UW 2050. In close collaboration with the Faculty Senate leadership, my office and the Board of Deans and Chancellors is launching a task force on the UW of 2050. How do we think about the university a generation or so from now? What will our faculty look like in 2050? Will some roles change? Others remain the same? What will be our staffing needs? What will be the expertise that we need from our staff? How would we support our staff in 2050? And what about our students? What will be their broad educational needs? Through all of this, what can we do now and the years just ahead to assure that the academic excellence of this university not only continues, but grows? In conclusion, a year ago, I outlined my goals for work as provost. And towards the end of that talk, I said, I want to go back to that, my goal in the coming years is to be a catalyst, a leader as an individual, as a team member, and a facilitator of teams. I also said we won't solve every problem or challenge immediately, but we will take on the biggest issues. We will build momentum to position the university to continued excellence in the decades ahead. End of quote. And we, that's not the royal we, it's the collaborative we, have made some significant progress in this past year. We have the teams of people, we have the expertise, we have the momentum, and we have the energy to do the work that we need to do. So many of you have helped me and worked with me over the past 2 years during my service as interim provost and then as provost, and I just want to say thank you. Let's keep going. We have a lot to do. And we have time for questions. Okay, we're done. No. Yes. Tell me your name.
Is there a mic or should I just?
Yes, there's a mic that's coming behind you. Hi, tell me your name.
My name is Ryan Niemeyer. I'm a postdoc in civil environmental engineering. And I'm actually likewise from Eastern Washington as well.
Where?
Omak,
Great.
Washington.
Okay.
So it's been really great being at UW, but I've noticed some of the faculty, there's not necessarily like service and research in the region. And I know it's not even like on the continental US. And I really have a passion for service. So I was just wondering how you could have UW increase the service to the region? Would part of that potentially be looking at potentially hiring faculty who are already rooted in the region?
Well,
Kind of two questions.
they did that with me. So could you run that by me again? Let me think.
Kind of how did you increase service regionally? Just because we have, like you said, a lot of pressing issues, and faculty do a lot of great research. But how do we kind of focus, kind of solve the
and I don't know your field particularly, but actually we do have some just incredibly. I mean, there are in some fields we're incredibly embedded in the community already. Let me just tell you about one project that's still just kind of very early stages. We call it the Light Rail Project. If you look at just sort of the light rail, the line, I think that the connections between some neighborhoods, so 5 years ago, to get from Beacon Hill to the University of Washington was a challenging thing. You had to take a bus to downtown, unless you had a car, but if you wanted to get here on public transportation, go downtown, transfer, get up here, and it would take you quite a while. But now with light rail, you can be here in a matter of minutes. And what we're discovering is that this can knit us so much more closely to communities throughout the city that traditionally maybe haven't felt very close to the University of Washington. We just did recently sort of an analysis, and I think we have about 45 or so, Ed, you would know, about 45 different university-wide programs along the light rail trail. And we're thinking about how we can enhance that. What more can we do? So I think that we are embedded. Maybe it depends on the field. Most of it we just don't know about. When I first started talking to some of my colleagues about it, I said, do we do anything? And Ed said, Ed Taylor has been working with me a lot, our vice provost for undergraduate academic affairs, said, well, we'll find out. And we found out we have actually a richness of things there. So maybe there's more going on. We just don't have a... Joel Berg, our Dean of Dentistry, led a task force 2 years ago to start to begin a catalog of just what we do in the region. And it became overwhelming because there was so much stuff. So it kind of depends on the discipline and areas, but the good news is a lot. The unfortunate thing is it's poorly coordinated. So nobody, it's one of our best kept secrets. So in some ways, and we need to do more to make it better known. It's so critical, I mean, so critical. One example that just inspired me to think about this issue in the first place, I think it was the summer before last, or was it last summer? The School of Pharmacy had talked to a bunch of students at Cleveland High School about their potential interest kind of in science and maybe in pharmacy, but just, you know, who had some interest in science. And they brought a group of students, I think about 8 or 10, 12, 20. They brought him here on the light rail. They gave him and they gave him a week-long training about science that was very engaging. But what caught my attention was they brought him here on the light rail. And so you have a sense of what a connection this can be. I'll go on too long about light rails, but I just think it has changed our ability to be engaged with some parts of closely engaged with some parts of, I think, of our community that maybe we haven't been as engaged as we should have been. Thank you. Yes? They're going to give you a...
Thank you.
What's your name?
Thank you very much. My name is Alexander Novahotko. I am a senior in bioengineering and biology.
Great.
So when I was a freshman at the University of Washington, I knew several people who stayed at the university for 7 years or so, or did like 3 or 4 majors before graduation. And then they graduated and went on to do interdisciplinary careers that fit that fairly lengthy education. These days, between the credit cap and the advisor-mandated graduation plans, that's basically no longer possible. Why has the UW become so much stricter, at least as far as I can see, in enforcing graduation on time? If a student pays tuition and has the means to stay in undergrad for longer, why do we block them from doing that? Since, after all, seniors typically are taking different courses than freshmen. I know this especially impacts transfer students who come in with some credits already, but I also know that it has affected students who are not just transfer students.
Okay.
Could you please speak to that?
Sure, happy to. So we aspire to have students be able to finish here in 4 years. We recognize that not everybody can. Actually, the single biggest cohort is in 4 years and a quarter. But you know, we do pay attention to our 6-year graduation rate. But some students can't finish in 4. Maybe they're double majoring, they don't get the major that they want, and they need to sort of recalibrate and make some other kinds of plans. I worry about, well, so a couple of things. One is, I think that our efforts to move to direct admission to college so that students may have greater knowledge about what their major can be when they first get here will eliminate some of the desire to stay a lot longer, because some of our students have found that they spend 2 years here and they still can't get the major that they want, and then they have to sort of figure out what's next, and that can be challenging. I think we've put in greater emphasis on advising to help students figure out what other kinds of majors there might be for them if they can't get the major that they want. You can become a computer scientist without actually majoring in computer science. Or if you major in history, you don't have to become an historian. There's lots of other things that you can do. You can major in anthropology and become a marketing person for Microsoft. And my staff like to tell me that if you major in communications, you can become a provost. So there's lots of opportunities for you. I think that the biggest issue, but the shortest answer to your question is a question of access. We're a state institution, and we want to have as many people. And access is a major issue for us. And the longer that people stay, especially those who are staying 7 years or more, regardless of whether they have money to pay for it or not, are preventing other people from coming here. Your tuition pays a substantial portion of the cost of your education, but not all of it. And so what we have to be mindful is how are we spending precious state dollars, and access and educating a whole bunch of people in this state is our top priority. My advice is, get the degree and then go I was dean of the graduate school, so I always encourage people, get your degree and then go do something and then figure out what you want to do as graduate. So don't go right to graduate school. Don't stay here forever. Go work, figure out what your passions are, what kinds of things do you want to know next. So that's why, just you or someone you might know having resources isn't a good enough reason, I think, to stay here, because I think it restricts access for other people. And as a public institution, we have to be mindful of that. Thanks. What else? Yes, hi.
Hi, so my name is Clara, and I'm a student here. So I was just wondering, how would you go about focusing on UW so that they have more ethical methods for getting apparel, so we're not endorsing sweatshop conditions for our UW apparel that we sell in the bookstore especially?
Yeah. Actually, in all honesty, I have not been involved with that issue. So if you give me your contact information at the end, I'll get back to you on what we're doing.
Okay.
But it's not really an area that I know.
Okay. And then can I ask another question?
Sure.
So how do you go about protecting, I would say, lectures specifically at UW, so they're not replaced by some TA positions? Because I know that's an issue that has occurred before. So how do you protect certain valued positions at UW? Because earlier you were talking about making sure that we're paying the people that we have enough while also still trying to bring people in. So how do we protect our valued positions here, no matter if they're lecturers or professors,
Right.
Without replacing them with people from other universities or people that we're still trying to bring in?
Well, let me talk specifically about lecturers, because I think you raised a really good point there. This is an ongoing process. President Kelsey, when she was provost, began some of the work to make sure that our lecturers had multi-year contracts and that they were competitively hired, they had multiple-year contracts, and they could be promoted within the lecturer ranks. And rather than just having quarter-to-quarter or maybe year-to-year appointments. In 2012, we had 35 lecturers on this campus who were eligible for promotion, who could be promoted in their jobs. By 2015, we had 147. So it was a 400% increase. Because of the efforts, as Provost Adamari created the guidelines that asked our deans to do this, and then those who were like still kind of quarter to quarter, year to year, the numbers of those dropped between 2012 from 178 down to 85. So I think that we've tried to do is create a more predictable work schedule and work life for our lecturers. It's a bigger issue too. It's not just the contract length. It's got to do with the quality of the culture. And those are ongoing conversations that the Board of Deans have been having with the Faculty Senate. We're also working this year on thinking about longer term contracts for part-time faculty, part-time lecturers who are 0.5 or greater. So there's no whole-scale move to get rid of people. In fact, if anything, I think we're moving the other way to try and provide more predictable and stable hiring for our valued faculty. Thank you. Yeah, Bruce, hi.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm Bruce Ballack, Emeritus Faculty in the Astronomy Department. What I've seen since I've retired is a very large shift in our student population from the humanities and the social sciences into STEM, speaking very broadly. Events of the last year, I think, show rather clearly that STEM, that we need the humanities more than we ever have before. And the students that are going into STEM need access to the humanities, especially ethics and politics. What are we as a university doing to introduce the humanities into these STEM areas, which are pretty much devoid of them, at least since I've been here?
Yeah, I think there are, Bob, correct me, I think there are ongoing conversations between the College of Engineering and the College of Arts and Sciences around sort of developing course materials, or Bob, can you? So I'm going to repeat that. So especially humanities minor that would be perhaps especially designed for engineers. So I think there are efforts about this. I think the other thing that we've done, and I worked on this with Bob, and I've worked on it with others too, is trying to show students that the humanities and the social sciences are really valuable careers too, that you can learn wonderful things there. So not everything has to be STEM. We really value STEM, but we need to, as you say, I think, recognize the value of the humanities and the social sciences. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tim Stetter with the Continuum College, and I direct the UW and the high school program. Just wanted to ask more about the 3 campuses, and could you say more about how they are working together, and is there any conversation around additional places for students to engage with UW? I know that some of the other universities are setting up additional shops around the state. Is that part of the conversation? But as these 3 campuses are growing and changing, how are we all working together?
Well, so first is, we don't have formal plans to create new campuses, but we're deeply involved in a lot of other kinds of places, and so many of our programs have satellite operations in office buildings or on the east side, or Bellevue College has asked us to get involved with them on some work there too. So there's a lot of things going on there that aren't about us creating a new campus, but us being out in the community. There's some conversations with University of Washington Tacoma in terms of trying to develop some kind of, some programs, not a new campus at all, but programs in places around Federal Way. And the second part of your question was?
Just if you wanted to say anything more about how the 3 campuses are working together.
Well, the chancellor's report to me and the president, so everything's great. So I think that, I think that we spent a lot of time, my sense is that we spent a lot of time over the last 25 years thinking about how the campuses were different from one another, how they could differentiate themselves from one another. And they each have a very unique kind of approach to things that really, I think, demonstrates their incredible quality. I think that going forward, I think we're starting to do more of, well, what can we do together as opposed to what, But I think that my sense is, from visiting both campuses and from talking to people, that there really is a sense that there is a University of Washington. And I can't speak for all of the people at those branches, excuse me, not the branches, at the other campuses. But I think that they fulfill an extremely important role for Tacoma and Bothell and the communities that they serve. And so they're part of the University of Washington, but they're a little bit different from Seattle. So back to your key question, how are things getting along? I don't know. I think we have a tri-campus group that Zoe, a task force that Zoe is leading this year. That there's lots of questions. I mean, just on our own campus, on this campus, on the Seattle campus, there's lots of questions that we have about how do we get along with one another. So it's an ongoing kind of thing. I don't know. I have a sense that there's a commitment to address that better. Would you say that?
We're focusing on actually trying to articulate what are the aspects or facets that are core to a University of Washington identity. I mean, I myself am a faculty member at the Tacoma campus, by the way, and it's huge to the Bothell and Tacoma students that they are part of the University of Washington. It's also really important to those students that they are part of the University of Washington Tacoma or Bothell. So, what is it that makes us part of a connected university, and what is it that allows us to flourish and kind of have our own particular flavors or identity within that larger umbrella? And then how do we establish scaffolding and institutional mechanisms that facilitate the collaboration and coordination across those different places?
Oh, yeah. We've had our first Fulbright at Tacoma. Sophie Knopp. So they're doing great stuff. I mean, they're emerging. The other campuses are emerging as really first-rate schools. No surprise. But when you get sort of some of these external kinds of validations of that, like having a student with a Fulbright, it really says this isn't just a branch. This is a real place, and they're large. Bothell is larger than any of the 4 years, I believe. No, it's bigger than Evergreen. So, excuse me. We got time for one more.
Hi, my name is Joshua Dawson. I'm a junior.
Hi, Joshua.
Here. Hey, good to see you.
Hi.
I'm a junior here at UW studying molecular and cellular biology. And you had mentioned that in the spring of 1970, that was the last time that you had felt the campus feel this polar, perhaps. I was wondering if you'd comment on how are we assuring students that we are actually addressing it? I know that we are as a university, but how are we ensuring that freshmen to juniors to sophomores who are just coming here are assured that the university is really working towards this issue?
In terms of creating kind of a uniform, good learning experience?
And yes, leading towards that, but like at a foundational level, how are we assuring that we are actively working towards like disseminating the polarity and diminishing it? I know we are, but how are we assuring students that we are, if that makes sense, to lead towards better learning outcomes?
Well, I think the Race and Equity Initiative is doing a big piece on that. I mean, it wasn't designed to address some of the polarities that have risen in the last couple of months, but I think it's very much about workshops and knowing how to talk to one another, and toolkits so we can do better, so we can better reflect the society in which we live. I think that the guiding principles of the Husky experience are to bring students here, encourage them to come in, and then from day one, from the first letter that they get from us, and then from the first time they come to orientation, is to have a sense of what it means to be successful both in the classroom and outside the classroom, and that we will help people. And so I think it's that kind of effort to reach out to students that can assure them that actually we want them to be successful here, that's our message for them. And that will get us all through, I think, the challenging times that we have. I mean, I think we've been a well-kept secret, but I think this is a phenomenal place to be an undergraduate student. And so when students get here and they can see the kinds of opportunities that they have, they can work in labs with some of the world's greatest researchers. They can listen to people who wrote the textbooks, that kind of thing. So there's a vibrancy here that I think can assure students that this is a good place and that we care about how well they fare. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here.